Hey, how's it going? I am doing your critique on for the 11-second club. My name is Paul Allen. Nice to meet you. Taking a look at your entry. Congratulations.
It's been a hell of a trip.
Let me watch it a couple
It's
of
been a
times.
hell of a trip. But after all is said and done, you did get me home, and I really appreciate it. Next time, let's go first class, all right?
I think it's looking really good. It has a lot of character and a lot of life to it, and it's a fun little interaction. And you're doing some nice things with having the alien character touch and interact with the human character, and I think that's pretty cool.
It's been a hell of a trip. But
just a general thing on when the guy in the blue is walking in, this guy, is that
it's been a hell of a trip. But
it feels a little overdone with the amount of flopping and sort of reaction in his body when he reacts.
But
And it just sort of caught my eye a little bit that he looks so far off over this when he says sure have after this guy says hell of a trip. So it's just a little unclear of what performance-wise what he was doing that for, why he looked so far over that way. His body is still sort of facing forward, and then if he's looking around, it's just not quite as clear.
It's been a hell of a trip. But
I like how you redirect and have him come to a stop. That feels nice. Watch this foot as you're repositioning this foot on the alien character. It sort of comes to sort of slides into place, and it doesn't feel like there's quite enough of a weight shift to get him because he's very sort of top heavy, and it feels like it's just sort of sliding sort of A to B. And the hand and the body start turning first, but the hand and the foot sort of all arrive into place at the same time, so just be careful of that.
It's been a hell of a trip. But after all is said and done, you did get me home, and I really appreciate it.
And I like how you're keeping him nice and still, and so that the focus stays over here, because there's always the tendency to overdo another character that's listening, that's just doing, just not actively participating in the conversation, is just like when we're doing this over-the-shoulder shot right here. As far as for the human character,
you did get me home, and I really appreciate it.
I think you could get maybe a little bit more asymmetry in the face. The lip sync is looking good. It feels a little understated, and the same goes with watching his eye expressions. There's not a lot of change. You're doing some nice you're doing some nice eyebrow work, but the amount that the eyes are opening, widening to accent things, it's staying sort of in the same sort of place a lot, and I think you could vary that up.
After all is said and done, you did get me home, and I really appreciate it.
And when he says you did get me home, maybe open him up a little bit more with his eyes, so it'll emphasize that. You look for little places to get a little bit of variation.
After all is said and done, you did get me home, and I really appreciate it. Next time.
And always listen for.
It's been a hell of a trip. But after all is said and done, you did get me home, and I really appreciate it.
Like when you listen for breath, when the character takes a breath.
But after all is said and done, you...
And like with the human, when he says, but you can hear a little bit of if you can hear, it feels like there's a little bit more of an intake of breath, so I think maybe you could emphasize that in his body a little bit. It feels like it's a little understated. Just maybe get a little bit more of a push out with the chest, but and then settle back into it.
Sure is, but that's right.
Because it feels like his body sort of hits a little bit of a wall there, watching his shoulder. And I think that in emphasizing that, but it'll help you roll through it a little bit more. Let's use the color we can see. It'll help you roll through it a little bit more, coming to the settle. Watch his shoulder. See how it feels like it hits a little bit of a wall there. And I think you could, smooth through that a little bit more.
But after all is said and done, you did get me home, and I really appreciate it.
And when all is said and done,
you did get me home.
You did get me home. I think that you could get a little bit more expression and break it up a little bit with a little bit more asymmetry on the face right here. You did, to really get that facial expression and lift up on this side here and get more of a pull and sort of squint with that.
Get me home, and I really appreciate it.
Ray says, I really appreciate it. Because it feels very, even though you got a little bit of a nice brow change, you might be able to bring that up a little bit more. See if we got a color that'll work. A little bit more, and like I said, get a little bit more action in the face to really sort of get that expression. Because it feels just a little bit neutral looking at him, and you really want, if you're sort of getting that, but really sort of push it so it really reads.
It's been a hell of a trip. Sure is.
I like
a hell of a trip.
I like what you're doing. It's a hell of a trip. I think you could break up this arm on him a little bit. It feels very sort of straight, and I think you could even use it to sort of brush and hit his leg a little bit, and then let it break at the elbow, and then loop back down through. It just feels a little bit like dead weight almost.
It's been a hell of a trip. Sure is. But after all is said and done, you did get me home, and I really appreciate it. Next time, let's go first.
And another little opportunity area is a little bit more of a reaction when he puts his hand on the human right here. I think you could get a little bit more like he's passing the torch back to the alien, to where he's saying, I really appreciate it, and then he puts his hand on his shoulder, and then it's a little bit like, oh, I'm paying attention to you now, just to come out of it, that sort of like, oh, hey, you're about to say something. And because it feels like he's just holding that same expression and it'd be nice to have a little bit of a subtle reaction to that contact and that sort of that changing of who is now talking.
Next time, let's go first class, right?
I like that laugh at the end, that reaction. That's really nice. Be careful of the alien's eyes right at the end. He looks like he's looking almost right at the camera. So just be careful of that. You might have to pull them. See if we can find a good spot. Maybe we can pull him over like he's looking past camera, maybe not quite that far, but just a little bit past camera. If there's the point is that they're sort of swinging this way.
It's been a hell of a trip. Sure is. But after all is said and done, you did.
Now I'm just looking at the hookup.
But
he feels like his head, and this is a little subjective on my part. It feels like his head is tilted in here a little bit more to the side. So I think he might need to hook that up a little bit. I'm looking at the angle of the shoulders, even though we're looking up on this. It feels like it's not quite the same pose. I think he could get a little bit more head tilt and maybe tilt his head back just a tiny bit. I'm looking at where their relative heights are. So he might need to come down, just the alien might need to come down a little bit, might need to bump his eye line down just a tiny bit. His eyes are, yes, the alien's eyes are right here. So you might need to just bump it down just a little bit.
after all is said and done, you did get me home, and I really appreciate it.
And the last sort of thing that sort of jumps out is it feels like the head movement is sort of isolated all right in here a little bit, and it doesn't feel like it's being supported, being driven from the hips and chest to sort of motivate that. I think that could be.
You did get me home, and I really appreciate it.
It feels like if the body is following the head as opposed to and I really appreciate that, where it's being driven from the core, from the spine. So that would be another thing to look at. But overall, I think it's a really fun piece, and a lot of this is just sort of policy type of stuff.
Let's go first class, all right?
And we might also consider not having him this guy's turned quite so profile, because he loses a little bit of his appeal because he's very flat-faced. If you could keep it sort of more in this realm, you don't have to have this head angle, but to where we can see a little bit more three-quarter of the face. Him being profile is not a big deal because he's not driving.
First class, all right? It's been a hell of a trip. But after all is said and done, you did get me.
And right there, just coming back to the breath.
After all is said and done, you did get me.
After all is said and done, you can hear a little bit of that breath.
After all is said and done, you did get me home, and I really appreciate it.
Just tying things together with the breathing is something that can really make it feel more organic. He says, let's see.
But after all is said and done, you did get me.
Just something to emphasize that the breath is part of the physicality of his acting and what he's doing. It's something that can always be good to keep in mind in any dialogue. It adds a lot listening to where the breath is, and because when you breathe, it builds in pauses, and your body reacts when you breathe. There's a physical reaction to that. So so that's just something to keep in mind as well. But like I said, really good job on this. Congratulations on doing a really good job on this performance, and there you go. Talk to you later.